Okay, so you finally did it. You took the plunge and got yourself a brand new pool. Congrats.
Huge congrats.
But let's be real. Opening up that Blue Haven pool manual for the first time, it could feel like walking into a chemistry class you weren't quite prepared for.
It can be a little intimidating.
Yeah. And that's why we're here today. We're diving deep into that manual and those super helpful videos from Blue Haven Pools of Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
We're going to decode all the essentials about pool chemistry so your pool's sparkling and definitely not, turning into a Swamp Thing's paradise.
That's right. Gotta avoid the green monster. And look, I'm here to be your guide, your pool chemistry spirit guide, so to speak.
I love it. Our pool chemistry guru.
We'll break down the jargon, make sure you feel confident about keeping your water crystal clear.
Perfect. So no green endings for us. Now the manual jumps right into water balance. Sounds kind of zen, but what's the need to know here?
So it really is the foundation of everything. Think of the three main players: your alkalinity, the pH, and calcium and hardness. It's like the legs of a stool, right?
Yeah.
You're missing one, the whole thing's unstable.
Probably stool situation.
Exactly. And that's when you run into etching.
Yeah.
Or maybe you get scaling, cloudy water, all sorts of headaches you don't want.
Yeah, no one wants a wobbly pool.
Exactly.
So water balance trinity it is.
I like it.
All right, let's break it down. Starting with, let's say, total alkalinity. What's the deal with this one?
All right, so total alkalinity, it's like a bodyguard for your pH levels. If the alkalinity is too low, that pH is going to be all over the place, up and down. You're going to spend way too much time chasing it, adjusting chemicals. You want to be relaxing in your pool, not constantly messing with it, right?
Right, exactly. Enjoy the pool, not just work on it all the time.
That's the goal. So shoot for that sweet spot, 80 to 120. Your manual will tell you that's the magic zone.
Okay, 80 to 120, got it.
Okay.
Now, speaking of pH, the manual seems kind of obsessed with it.
Mhm.
What makes pH so important?
So pH, it all boils down to how well your chlorine can actually do its job. Remember that chart from the video showed how effective the chlorine is at different pH levels? That's the key. Most experts will tell you, keep your pool's pH right around 7.2 to 7.6. That's chlorine's happy place. Not too high, not too low, just right for maximum germ fighting power. You go outside that range, your chlorine's basically taking a vacation.
Oh, no. We can't have the chlorine off on vacation.
No, we need it working.
Especially not with, potential algae lurking.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's alkalinity and pH. What about the last piece of our water balance trinity? Calcium hardness. I mean, we all know we need calcium for strong bones.
Right.
But what's it doing in my pool?
This one's all about your pool surfaces. You don't have enough calcium, you're going to get etching. It's like tiny little vampires taking bites out of your pool's finish.
Ick. That does not sound good.
It's not a good look. But then on the other hand, too much calcium, now you're dealing with scaling. That's that buildup, the crusty calcium deposits, makes your pool feel like sandpaper.
Okay, yeah, no thanks to that.
Yeah, so the manual recommends keeping it between 200 to 400 parts per million, finding that nice balance to protect those surfaces.
So it sounds like keeping these three things, our trinity, in check is like the key to having a really healthy, sparkling, beautiful pool.
You got it. And how do you do that? You got to test regularly, especially in those first 60 days after you get the pool. Your new plaster can really mess with the balance early on.
Yeah, they mentioned new plaster having like a pH spike as it cures. What's that all about?
So as that plaster hardens, it's still going through some chemical reactions.
Ah, okay.
And those can throw off your water chemistry, especially your pH. You'll be testing your water like crazy at first, every day, then ease up as it stabilizes. Like a new car needs a little extra attention at the beginning.
That makes sense. So, okay, we've got our water balanced, but what about keeping it clean? I mean, that's where the chlorine comes in, right?
Exactly. Time to dive into the chlorine chronicles.
All right, chlorine. The name itself evokes a strong image, doesn't it? That classic pool smell. But here's the thing. The smell actually means something's wrong.
It's not the smell of a clean pool. That strong, almost pungent smell is a sign of combined chlorine, which is basically chlorine that's already done its job and is now exhausted.
So it's like the chlorine superhero has been fighting off germs all day and needs a break.
Exactly. Free chlorine is the active sanitizer, the one that actually kills bacteria and algae. Combined chlorine, also known as chloramines, is formed when chlorine reacts with contaminants in the water, making it less effective. That's why you need to keep an eye on those free chlorine levels and give your chlorine a boost when it needs it.
Okay, so how do I know if my chlorine is doing its job?
The best way is to test your water regularly. Your manual gives you a target range for free chlorine, and it'll vary depending on whether you have an ozonator or not. But the key is to maintain that level consistently.
And is shocking the way we get rid of combined chlorine and recharge our chlorine superhero.
You got it. Shocking basically means superchlorinating your pool, giving it a hefty dose of chlorine to zap any lingering nasties. And what's fascinating is that there are actually different types of shock out there, each with its own pros and cons. Think of it as choosing the right weapon for the job.
So tell me about these shock options.
Well, the most common and often the cheapest is calcium hypochlorite. It's readily available, but it adds calcium to your water. If your calcium hardness is already on the high side, using calcium hypochlorite could push it over the limit, forcing you to partially drain and refill your pool.
And then there's sodium dichlor, which is a bit more popular.
Yes. Sodium dichlor dissolves quickly and doesn't cloud the water like calcium hypochlorite can. However, it adds stabilizer to your water.
Stabilizer. Is that the same thing as cyanuric acid?
You're getting ahead of me, but yes, you're on the right track. We'll dive into cyanuric acid, CYA, in a bit. Just remember that sodium dichlor can bump up your CYA levels, which can have its own set of challenges.
So what's the last option for shocking?
That would be lithium hypochlorite. It's often the priciest choice, but it dissolves quickly and doesn't impact calcium or stabilizer levels. It's a great option if you're already battling high calcium or CYA levels.
Wow, so we're basically choosing the right weapon for the chlorine battle. I guess it's time to get back to the manual to see what type of shock is recommended for my pool.
Absolutely. It's always a good idea to check the specific guidelines, but remember, the why behind shocking is just as important as the how.
What do you mean by that?
Well, shocking isn't just a routine chore. It's a way to combat unexpected issues, like after heavy pool use, a rainstorm, or even an algae outbreak. Imagine your pool as a battlefield. Shocking is how you regain control.
Okay, so shocking is all about keeping our pool clean. But now we're getting to the part about cyanuric acid, CYA. Why is that so important?
CYA acts like sunscreen for your chlorine, protecting it from breaking down too quickly in the sun. Think of it like this. Chlorine is a delicate flower. The sun's UV rays can burn it out before it can do its job. CYA steps in to protect your chlorine and keep it working effectively.
So we want to make sure there's enough CYA in the pool to shield our chlorine from the sun.
Not exactly. It's a delicate balance. The ideal CYA range is between 30 and 70 parts per million, but too much CYA can actually lead to chlorine lockup.
What does chlorine lockup mean?
Imagine your chlorine is trying to do its job, but it's trapped in a hug with CYA, unable to move freely. The CYA binds so tightly to the chlorine that it can't effectively sanitize your pool, even if you have high chlorine readings.
So even if the chlorine levels seem high, my pool might not be properly sanitized because of too much CYA.
That's right. And the only way to fix that is to partially drain the pool and refill it with fresh water. That's why it's essential to monitor your CYA levels and be careful about using shock products that add CYA to your water.
This is getting interesting. So we've talked about water balance, chlorine, shocking, and CYA. What's next?
Now we're going to move on to the topic nobody wants to think about but has to be addressed. Algae.
Ugh, algae. I just picture that slimy green stuff taking over my pool. Yeah, no one wants a swamp monster pool party. So how do we prevent that? How do we not let the green stuff take over?
Honestly, prevention is your best friend here. A well-maintained pool. Algae's got nowhere to take hold.
So we just got to stay on top of everything we talked about.
You got it. Keep that water balanced, your chlorine level's good, make sure the water's circulating well. It all matters.
So if things are good, algae is less likely to, move in and set up shop.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Algae, it's opportunistic. It loves a good deal, right? Stagnant water, low chlorine, water chemistry out of whack. That's a welcome mat for algae.
Okay, so no welcome mat for algae. But let's say, it happens, we get a little algae outbreak. What's the game plan?
Don't panic. Your manual's got your back, lays out a whole battle plan.
Yeah.
Step 1, you got to shock the pool, knock out that existing algae.
Okay.
Then you're going to give it a good scrub, brush those affected areas, get rid of any hangers on. And finally, it's all about getting that sparkle back. You'll adjust your water chemistry, run your filter, get everything back in balance.
Now, the manual also mentioned something about a phosphate remover. Why are phosphates a problem?
Phosphates. Think of those as algae food. They sneak into your pool from all sorts of places. Fertilizer, maybe some leaves blew in, even dust. A phosphate remover, like the one they recommend, it'll starve those little algae guys right out.
It's like cutting off their food supply.
You got it. Take away their resources. They can't thrive.
Okay, this is great. We've covered water balance, chlorine, shocking, CYA, even fought off some algae. What else do we need to be, total pool ninjas?
One last big one, especially with, you get those colder months.
Oh, right. Winterizing.
Exactly. Big question is, open and running all winter, or close her down?
And the manual made it clear, both have their downsides.
Oh, yeah. They even have that waiver of liability section, spells out the risks. See, keeping it open, you run the risk of freeze damage, especially if you get hit with a real cold snap. Pipes can freeze, burst, even the pool surface isn't immune.
But closing it down seems like it has its own issues.
True. No regular circulation and treatment. You risk staining, scaling. Imagine putting your pool to sleep without tucking it in right way. You might not like what you wake up to.
So how do you decide what to do?
Honestly, talk to a local pro. They know your climate best, what your pool's like, and they can help you weigh the pros and cons.
It's kind of a gamble either way, huh?
It can feel like that. Remember that story in the manual? The pool owner with a cover still had freeze damage? Nature, it's got its own plans sometimes.
Wow, you've given me a lot to think about. It sounds like pool chemistry, it's not just a one-time thing. It's like a journey.
It really is. And the cool thing is, every pool's different. You'll pick up your own tricks as you go. Just be observant, test your water, and don't be afraid to ask for help. This is your crash course, but the learning never really stops.
I love that. So this has been so helpful, from water balance to chlorine to fighting off that algae, even winterizing. We really covered it all.
We did. And hey, most importantly, you're armed with the knowledge to keep that pool sparkling. Remember, happy pool owner. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. Enjoy that beautiful oasis, everyone, and never stop exploring the world of pool chemistry. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.